Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Blushing Nerd Tarot. I'm here today again. A little more on that later. To do the tag from Lisa Papez 21 tarot questions. So I already recorded this, but had a little bit of a technical issue with camera microphone setup and basically didn't get any audio for almost the entire thing. So here I am again. Gonna go ahead and give it another try. So fingers crossed, everything comes through this time, and I think we'll be all set. So, all right. Without further ado, I'm going to try and make this a little faster in my first run through, only because Lisa and others were keeping it to around a half hour. So my first one was a little long, so I would like to trim it up a bit. So here we go. So question number one: what is the deck they'll have to pry out of your cold dead hands? That one is a little bit easy for me, but also it's one that can't be had anymore. It's not. This is a deck that it's it's not that it ever really kind of was in print. And by the way, I am going to have both of these screens up, a little one with me and then my down camera. So apologies if the image isn't big enough for you there, but I have to have it set up this way because unfortunately the way StreamYard does this with the extra camera, um, I found out in my first recording, it won't pick up the microphone if the face camera isn't on. So that was an interesting experience. So anyway, that's what it is. So the first deck that I have today is Tanji Cards. I don't know if any of you were lucky enough to get in on this. So Tanji, if you are familiar, Tanji is a creator. She's an energy worker and an artist, and she created these cards specifically with the idea of making decks from them. And then she ultimately, if you placed an order, she would then create a deck for you with the cards that out of the cards that she created. So each one was unique, and this is one that's pretty special to me. So that is one, my Tangy cards, that is one that I will always hang on to and treasure. Number two, what's your guilty pleasure deck? I actually have two for this. Guilty pleasure deck number one is a relatively recent acquisition for me, the True Black. I think I mentioned on another video. This is the 5th edition, I believe, with the iridescent foiling, which is pretty fantastic. Yeah, 5th anniversary edition. And just, it's a guilty pleasure because it's one that I actually wanted for quite a while, but it was at times out of print, I believe, because I remember looking at it at one point and they didn't have anything available. Uh, so very happy to have been able to get this now, and just love that holographic treatment of the foiling. Very cool. And it's just so well done. Just with the black edging, and the card stock's beautiful. It's matte, ticks all the boxes for me as an indulgence. It's well thought out, the imagery and everything else. So that is a guilty pleasure. And then also the Alleyman's Tarot is kind of a guilty pleasure for me. This is another deck that it's not. I don't know. It's excess, I guess, is kind of one of the ways I think of the whole guilty pleasure concept, because you get this just huge selection of fun things, that you can then turn into any deck you want. And if you haven't yet, and you have this deck or you're interested in it anyway as a topic or a project, there's actually a podcast that goes along with this that kind of adds to the lore and gives you a little bit more information about the whole idea of the Alleyman. So very fun. Number 3, what's the deck you wish existed? This one, um, I would love to see a collaborative effort between Uusi, um, makers of the Pagan Otherworlds, and other things. A collaboration between Uusi and Artisan Tarot, I think, would be pretty fantastic. They are both creators that just have really great artistic vision, um, from two very different angles in the way they approach things, I think. But together, I think they would be a force to be reckoned with and would be really fun. I would love to see a deck that's a collaboration between those two. In particular, I would like to see a Marseille deck that if the two of them would do something like that. So I think that would be a blast. All right. What deck would you give to a new reader? Definitely, and I think Robin mentioned this one maybe too, and probably others as well, because it's a bit of a no-brainer for a new reader. It was really my first main deck that wasn't just a novelty. Is the RWS Centennial. Um, it's just nice card stock, nice coloration, nice lines. It's a good clean starter. It's one to you know get anyone going in the right direction. If they're interested in RWS, if they're not interested in RWS, if that imagery doesn't speak to them, there are certainly plenty of other good options out there in mass market decks, very easily accessible decks being sold at bookstores and a variety of places that people can access very easily. So I think there are lots of good options out there. But it's hard to beat the Centennial. I think that's probably the best one to go with. Um, if nothing else, you can get started. But I will say I advocate too for Marseille decks for beginners, because there's a lot going on in RWS, a lot going on in the imagery, and there are a lot of people that have a lot to say about those things. So it can get confusing for new readers, new people that are interested in tarot. There's so much. Um, I don't know. There's such a wide variety of interpretations and emphasis put on different things. Like, are the elements important? Are do we put too much focus on I don't know, certain aspects of the imagery, be it negative or positive depictions in the RWS that maybe don't really carry on into other creators' decks. So, so going with Marseille as a beginner and maybe sticking to a more straightforward numerical approach. If you go with somebody like Patici, watching Patici's videos, and then also the books. Patici has some books out that really help on both systems, including RWS, to kind of cut through some of that a little bit and simplify it so that you can then build things onto it yourself, whatever might speak to you. But as a beginner, to have that that pared down, straightforward numerical thing, just it can be really helpful, I think, and it would probably um, help more people stay in, if they have an interest. So, anyway, um, let's see. Number 5. What deck do you want to get along with, but it just never clicked? So, for me, that's probably going to be Carnival at the End of the World. I love the art in this deck. It's super creative, very interesting style. I really do enjoy the artwork here. But I do also um, lack a connection. I don't know, just something about it hasn't clicked yet. It may if I spend a little bit more time with it, and I'm acknowledging for sure that this isn't one that I've spent a lot of time with yet. But as a piece of artwork, as a creative thing, I think it's amazing. So probably worth me spending a little bit more time or giving it a try. Okay, number 6. What deck do you only keep for the art? That's going to be maybe a controversial one, maybe not. I don't know. Trionfi della Luna Illustrated Pips Edition. This one is Patrick Valenza's art is great. I do like the artwork, but I don't read with the deck, so I essentially am keeping this really just for the artwork, for the for the fact that I appreciate the art, I appreciate the work that went into it. I think it's an interesting deck for a lot of different reasons. However, it's just not something I read with, so um, never really clicked for me. That is almost just like the last prompt. So for me, and in both cases, I really appreciated the art. So, what deck did you buy? This is number 7. What deck did you buy because everyone else did? That one for me is the Light Seers. I think when I first started looking at Tarot Tube, it seemed like Light Seers was everywhere. Everybody's talking about Light Seers. Um, Based on what I saw in a lot of those videos, I didn't think it was going to be a deck for me necessarily, but you hear about something so much that eventually you think, maybe I ought to check it out. What am I, I got to be missing something here. So I think I picked it up when I was at a bookstore one time. But everybody knows the Light Seers. It's been all over the place a lot. So it's a cool deck. Uh, Neat images, uh, beautiful illustrations, some really cool ways of illustrating different concepts in this deck versus what we might see normally in RWS or some other traditional RWS things like that. So I I, I appreciate it as a thing of art. However, and if I could just get my camera to realize that I'm not holding it up close anymore. But anyway, it's I I just I don't know. Everybody was getting it. I felt like I had to do it, but I don't know. It's not a thing for me. I probably should have just listened to my instincts were telling me that it probably isn't going to be a thing, and sure enough, it's not a thing. So, all right. Well, we'll get that background here sometime. So, on to the next. What deck is over your head or just baffles you? That for me is going to be the Rota Mundi. Rota Mundi. This is from Daniel Loeb. It is a fascinating thing. It is intense. I mean, this deck is really something. The book is huge and very, very full of so much information, so much Kabbalistic interpretations, um, It's just it's quite a thing. I mean, he really put some major effort into this. It is an intense deck. So, I would love to do more with this and learn more about it. Um, but it's I think it's probably a couple of college courses worth of material. So I mean, I just don't have time to study it like I would like to. So it remains a study thing for me, or a goal maybe if for retirement or something. But for now, it's over my head for sure. What deck surprised you? That's going to be one that Gerald and I did a deck test drive for the Meraki Tarot. This is the Meraki second edition, and uh, it surprised me because of all of the extras. For one thing, the creator really went above and beyond. I mean, first of all, it's beautiful matte finish. It's rose petal. This one is a heavier rose petal. Well, I don't know if that's a fair classification, but it's not sticky. But the rose petal certainly is evident when you slide the cards against each other. So, for some people, that's a thing that they would probably want to know about. But it comes with a couple of extras, several extra cards. It does have these yes and no cards. It has oracle cards that they included in the deck, and then it has all of these little helpers because a lot of the concentration of this has to do with crystal associations, and it's very helpful to have cards to help interpret that. Major arcana associations, astrology, elemental, and then uh, each of the suits has its own dedicated card with some additional info, and then the majors and so on. So, just so much extra stuff that was included here that really didn't need to be, but is such a great bonus. I mean, I think really nice stuff. So, also the artwork is fantastic. How about this for this is one of the oracle cards, aspiration. But it's really nice artwork. Very well thought out. And then overall just the quality of the finished product, the extras, the edging. I love the edging on this. It's this beautiful green color. It looks a little bluer on camera than it does in real life. It's kind of a green finish, but then a nice there's a beautiful guidebook with it as well. And that is purchased through the creator's Etsy site, which I'll probably link the creator's website on the video, and then you can follow through to the store. I'm not 100% positive if they still have or if they have a current print run, but worth taking a look. Okay. Let's see. We're on to number 10. What deck doesn't really work for you, but you keep it because it's collectible? That is the Tyldwick for me. So Tyldwick has come up, I think, in other people's too, maybe in different slots for different reasons. Beautiful gilding on this second edition, by the way. So it is a beautiful deck. I really admire, this one would have taken a lot of time to curate these images and to think about how, and it's not just curated either. I mean, there's a lot of work here, and to think about the associations, with the subtleties, and I think that for me, is really the reason I don't reach for this more frequently, and why it doesn't, it's just not a workhorse for me. It's not something I go to frequently because of it's very subtle, and that doesn't necessarily work for me all the time. So I just tend to um, enjoy that one as a collector's item because I think I believe it does sell for quite a lot in the secondary market, but I don't plan to sell it. I am a collector in addition to being a reader, so I'm okay with hanging on to things. All right, what deck is your favorite gilded deck? That would be Location Spirit of Place. This is from the creators Destiny, and this gilding. Look at that. I mean, it's iridescent, holographic black. It's so cool. And it really fits with the idea of this deck because this is the one, if you're not familiar with it, it has sort of this glossy embossed. I guess that would be a way to think about it. It's not actually embossed, but you can feel a little bit of a relief there. But anyway, the RWS imagery is sort of superimposed in a transparent way over a different scene. Different meaning not what you would typically see in an RWS. So you really get this interesting effect because if you just look at the card without having the light there, you can't really see that the cups are actually in the rainbow, but they are there. And then there are characters down below. And all of the cards are like that. And the idea is, I think it draws you into the image and it really makes you think about the space. So, and I know there's the spatial tarot out there, and that's another way to illustrate that, bring the scene in, elevate that, the scene as more of an important feature. But yeah, this is just it's a beautiful deck, and I think really well done. But I'll tell you what, the gilding on it is second to none. It's incredible, and it seems to be very sturdy as well. So that's an impressive one. Okay, right up to here, number 12. Which deck do you love but hate the card stock? I mean, hate might be a strong word, but I really don't like the Wild Unknown card stock. I've tried. It's a good riffle shuffler. I'll give it that. It does that like a champ. However, it is like so chintzy feeling. It really has no like weight to it. It doesn't feel substantial at all. And adding insult to injury, you can feel how it was punched in the die so that it actually left a lip around all of the edges. So they tend to actually catch a little bit if you're overhand shuffling. They can sort of catch on the edges, which is enough to drive me nuts. But I feel like a deck that was this popular isn't it really the most popular deck of the probably the last 15 years, I guess, or something like that. I mean, I feel like the publisher should have stepped up a little bit. Just put a little bit more into that, and it could be such a, I don't know, a much better experience. Because when it comes right down to it, cardstock is a big influencing factor for me in whether or not I'll use a deck because it's a very tactile experience. When you pick up a deck, for me, it needs to feel good in my hands just as much as any other aspect of of or any other feature. The visuals, it's all part of an overall experience. Card stock is important to me. So unfortunately, that one falls short. Okay. Number 13, fittingly, what deck gives you the willies? Now, I had to take this a different direction because I don't really there aren't any decks that give me the willies. I haven't had that kind of experience if we're talking about um like willies, like from like something, I don't know, something creepy about it or something. So what I ended up doing is going with a deck that gives me the willies because of just how really terrible it is. It's really bad. So bad. Some of you may remember I bought this, I think it was last fall or something, that because I wanted to see if it was possible to buy a deck for, under $10 US. This one's $7.97 from Sweetwater Press. I wanted to see if it was possible to get anything decent at that price point for a beginner, for somebody that is curious but doesn't want to put a lot of money into it or something. Shiny card stock, that's not good. It's thin, cheap stuff. But I mean, come on. Like, I don't know. It's just the images are pretty bad, uninspiring. I don't care that it's sort of pippish. They definitely, um, they're not going to help a lot of people there. But this one strikes me as being, people talk about lazy pips. I think that was the case here, is that, I mean, it's a cheap deck. They can't really pay an artist to do extra work there. But I mean, it's nothing. It's just all a bunch of blonde white people. I don't know. And uh, it's just so disappointing. This deck, not that I had high hopes for something in that price range, but I certainly thought they could do a little bit better than this. And they didn't. It's terrible. It gives me the willies because it's just so bad. So that's number 13. All right. Enough of the bad stuff. I don't want to talk about bad stuff anymore. Let's go on to number 14. What's your favorite deck for shadow work? I kind of agree with Robin on this one, where he said basically any deck he can work with in that way. I feel that way too. But I have a main pick and a runner up for this, because if I feel like there's a particular need in that area, there's a deck that I have that really helps to set the stage, and that's Lux Ex Umbra Tarot from Mystic. This is another just absolutely gorgeous presentation. Wonderful construction, material choices. I'm a sucker for the black edging treatment, and I love it when I see that index. But really beautifully done. It is pips. It has, a dark, for the most part. You'll see a couple of cards in here that have some maybe a little bit lighter theme, but overall, this is definitely a dark deck. And I feel like just naturally lends itself to shadow work. I mean, it's these storm cloud backgrounds, um, the smoke rising off the incense cone. It is one of my favorite star cards. Just love it. So that's a good shadow work deck, I think. And then the runner up for this one is, I believe, will be a good deck for shadow work, but it's brand new to me. But it seems to have some of the right stuff for that. So that is Earth Magic. This is a um, really, really cool deck, brand new to me, and I love the way that it has just sort of a the single um, I don't know, that monotone kind of look, and yet is so rich because of the excellent shading, the choices the artist made. Beautiful deck. But I think this one might be good for shadow work. Has that kind of has that feel to it. So might give it a try sometime. All right. We are now at number 15. What deck do you love in theory but not in practice? For me, that is the Santa Muerte. I think it's a cool deck with lots of very interesting images. But that's about where it ends for me, just in general. It's not I just don't find myself really wanting to reach for this and work with it. So I do like it in theory. I love the artwork, but that's about it for me. And I don't know that I ever will. And since it's mass market, this might be one that that might end up in a purgatory kind of situation for me. I may end up passing this along, rehoming it, that sort of thing. But ultimately, probably not going to use that very much. All right. So number 16, what deck would you never use to read for someone else? Um, if I can find out what I did with it. Here we go. This is a repeat for me in this list, and it's the Tyldwick. I wouldn't use this to read for somebody unless they knew this deck. I think if they were also a reader and they were familiar with this deck, then we might get somewhere. But there's a lot that I want to. I want the images to be able to quickly communicate with the querent and also then add to the conversation, the back and forth that we can have. And I don't think Tyldwick can do that as quickly, especially for somebody who isn't familiar with it. So if you've never seen the deck before, it won't give you any kind of uh, imagery to react on or anything like that. It just doesn't feed anything into the equation in the same way that so many other decks do. So I wouldn't use that for others. Number 17, what deck would you never use for yourself? And, there are a few, just even some that I've already mentioned in the list. But I got this one also as a mass market, picked it up in a bookstore kind of thing out of curiosity, the Essential Tarot. And this one is it doesn't do it for me. The color scheme, the some of the choices for the imagery, the quality of the card stock, all that sort of stuff. It just doesn't do it. So this is one that I can say that I would never pick it up to read for myself because I literally never pick it up to read for myself. I just don't, and I won't. So be it. No big deal, right? They're not all going to work. Um, so this is another one too, being mass market, that I would gladly rehome, I think, should the opportunity arise. Okay, let's see. Number 18. What deck could you not bring yourself to buy? It's not a single deck that I could think of per se, but I tend to avoid buying um, fandom decks. It's just not my thing. Um, I don't. There are lots of them that I feel they're appealing just because I am a fan of the content in pop culture or whatever, or like Dungeons and Dragons. You know, that's I've been playing that game all my life, but I I just couldn't bring myself to buy the deck because I felt like that's a crossover I don't need in my life. I I I don't know, the commercial grab for, I don't know. There are a lot of things about it that just don't sit right with me, so I tend to not go for fandom decks. And whatever. It could even be fine on occasion. I could see myself maybe getting them as a novelty. But this day and age, I don't know. Decks are expensive, and I'd rather spend it on things that I think I'm probably going to use. Because there are some really good decks out there that you know I could buy two or three of those fandom decks and never touch them, or I could combine that money and buy one that's really fantastic that I would use all the time. So just feels more meaningful to me. But to each his and her own. It's a totally personal experience. And those fandom decks are there for a reason. They're very popular. Just doesn't work for me. What's your favorite pip deck? This is gonna be a repeat as well, but it's the Lux X Umbra. Those pips are great. And if I were picking just in general, something that uses pips that is a favorite, it would be a Marseille deck. But so many Marseille decks are very, very similar. And this question, I think, was more about uh, outside of strictly Marseille system. What is a pip deck that appeals to you? And this is that. There are a few, but this one really is one I reach for a lot. Number 20, what deck slaps you with the truth? That's going to be, speaking of Tarot de Marseille, the Nicholas Conver, Artisan Tarot. Their remastering of this deck is beautiful, very well done, as are all of their projects. And this one just cuts right to the point. Every time I do a reading with this, it slices through any wishy-washiness and just tells me how it is, and I really enjoy it for that reason. I also like reading for others with this for the same reason. It's a clear communicator, and it's a nice physical thing to work with, which is great. Number 21, here we are. What's the deck that got away? So for me, that's going to be the blue box Blushing Fool, the original, no copyright, blue box RWS. I remember looking at those early on and seeing a few that pop up on eBay now and then, and the prices were pretty rough, but not terrible. And then I don't know, they just caught fire and just started selling for much higher prices, and they were less and less common. It was very difficult to find them for a while. So I kind of stopped looking. I mean, I have one of those saved search features on eBay, so it'll tell me anytime somebody lists something. But I don't know. Maybe I don't have it worded properly, but it just doesn't seem like they're ever coming up anymore. And the few times that I have seen them come up, it's like 3 times as much as they were just a couple of years ago. So that's probably the one for me. Probably should have picked one up a long time ago, but who knows? Maybe I'll run into one at some point that is a little bit uh, more reasonable. And I like it because I do like the vintage decks. I like trying to um, collect the no copyright yellow box. Um, so this sorry, this style from the 1970s also, but this isn't the blue box version. So um, but yeah, the same old classic that everybody's seen. Um, and I don't know. Yeah, this is a no copyright one. So down in the lower corner on the copyrighted cards, you'll see the U.S. Games copyright. This one does not have it, so this would be considered a no copyright deck. And there are different ways that you can determine age and things like that by looking at the uh, images of the little white book that comes with it. So if you're able to see images of that on an eBay listing or something, um, avoid things with the Connecticut address because it's going to be copyrighted. And there are certain, I think, is it Park Avenue West or something? I don't recall for sure right off the top of my head. But you can find some other YouTube videos that give you some resources and talk about how to look for those if that's something that interests you. But um, and I don't plan to make any sort of sizable collection of these. I just like to have a couple of original or very as close to the original back then when it started kicking up again as possible. Um, so yeah, I'd love to have a blue box too. So maybe one of these days. Anyway, that's it for 21 tarot questions. Big thanks to Lisa for putting this out there, Lisa and Peggy. And yeah, it was a fun tag to do. Would have been nice if I only had to do it once, but hey, it's fine. It worked out. So happy to hop on and give it another try and wrestle with the technology. So um, anyway, folks, I really appreciate you stopping by and checking it out with me. Do a response if you haven't yet, and tag if you're just starting out on YouTube or you're thinking about doing a YouTube channel. This kind of tag is a really good way to start because it immediately gets you some other links to other videos and things like that. And it also gives you a framework. So you're kind of going in with a structure, and that helps out a lot when you're first starting out. So I would love to see what other people add to this conversation. So look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everybody.